Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello, people, and welcome to the National League. We're starting ahead of time. Thanks to Rory, and Dan is going to be joining us. There's plenty of people are here. We're going to talk Gyokeres, Arsenal, Fulham, Manchester City winning yesterday and going to the semi-final. It would have been a history in the making if Manchester City lost yesterday. It could have been the first time a semi-final since 2008 without a top 16, but Man City came back from behind to win with Omar Marmoush, my Egyptian guy, coming up with the goods, of course. Victor Gyokeres is bond to Arsenal, as David Ornstein is saying. Bukayo Saka as Mikel Arteta, and I'm sure Rory will talk about it, alluded in his press conference that he is ready to play the major role he has been playing over the past years at Arsenal, again after the hamstring injury, of course. Chelsea, if you're a Chelsea fan, Chelsea are basically trying to sell your best winger in Madueke, keeping the others. Another thing for Chelsea that Dan is going to be talking. Dan is joining us momentarily. It is 400 people, over 400 people in the house. And I want to thank the gentleman here, Rory, of course. I want to thank Dan. Tom Little is going to be joining us later. Of course, he's a little bit busy, but he's going to be joining us later in the show. Hit that like button. People, subscribe to the channel. If you're new to the channel, I'm actually 9 subscribers away from 30,400 subs. So hit that like button. We're trying to get you content all the time. We're going to try to do something new in the channel soon. Hit that like button, people. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let's get the likes up to 200 right off the bat. It helps the channel. The algorithms are actually dead during it was the worst international break I've ever seen in my life, the longest. That is why it was filled with transfer news, because the title race is dead. But there are good news for the Gooners, not great news for the Liverpool fans, of course, that support Liverpool. Salah with the video yesterday. I'm just going to start. Did you watch the video that Salah did?
Yeah.
Did you make anything out of it?
No, but I feel like if it wasn't a dead international break, people wouldn't have been trying to decipher it like it was some sort of, I don't know, code. I just think it was a
2 seconds video, no sound.
It was,
and
weird.
Liverpool fans are talking about interpretation of body language.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I watched the video like 10 times. Did Trent do a move? Did Salah say something? Well, what is happening?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
had no idea, like, to be honest with you. But listen, yes, I am talking too much. Twisted Baba, for one reason. I actually had breakfast today. I had some cookies, I had coffee, and it's the first time in 30 days where I wake up and I have breakfast for 30 days. And happy Eid to everyone that is here. People are celebrating Eid everywhere. I'm not in the UK. You guys, some people celebrated yesterday. It's our first day today, actually, because they didn't sight the moon yesterday. But listen, before we go on and talk about the show, listen to Luke. Appreciate you, Luke, for supporting the channel. Hit that like button, people. Listen to Luke and hit that like button. I might actually send the link to Nick, the Liverpool fan, until Tom comes here. He's a rational one. As well, all the way from Australia. Nick, text me if you can join the show, Nick. Text me on WhatsApp if you can join the show. How are you, Dan? You're right.
Yeah, all good, all good. I'm looking forward to football being back finally properly this weekend. I've got to say, the international break's been a little bit too long, but yeah, good to be
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow,
yeah, true.
Through the weekend.
It came back yesterday.
Yeah, no, yeah, well, yeah, for some
Yeah,
teams.
but like,
it came back yesterday. Did you see Mark Goldbridge
the FA
clip?
Cup? The FA Cup's good, isn't it? To be fair, like with a lot of those teams, it'll mean everything to them. It's just City we need to get out of the way, really.
Did you see a clip from Mark Goldbridge yesterday? Like the 2 days ago.
With
He
the
flagged off the Premier League. No, the Premier League. Why are we watching FA Cup in the first weekend after international break? Why am I watching this shit? Can't we get the Premier League back? We could have been watching Liverpool, Everton, Arsenal, Fulham, like Nottingham Forest, Man United. He's like, he was so upset. And I'm like, I get it. I waited for 2 weeks just to watch a 0-0 game in the FA Cup. And I'm like, yeah, but to be honest with you, Crystal Palace was a great game. Yesterday game was phenomenal. Like the Bournemouth Man City game was absolutely amazing, to be honest. And guys, let's get this out of the way. Dan and Rory are not brothers. Have you ever guys met in real life?
no.
Hopefully we'll do this podcast live in the UK sometime soon. And we're all gonna meet. Hopefully soon. I'll come to the UK and do it. But listen, people, we should start with the Gyokeres news. Should we? Or should we start with the Madueke thing?
No, let's start with Gyokeres. I think that's bigger news.
It is bigger news. I'm gonna spin this. I've been talking for an hour and a half about this on the Football Terrace. I'm gonna spin this. Haven't we seen this movie before about Gyokeres with Arsenal? Or is it different with Berta?
Yeah, I think
Linked, liked, interested.
Yeah. Well, it's firstly it's different because Ornstein's saying it, and Ornstein doesn't say things unless there's like very credible, someone very credible has told him, and the fact that he said it's a strong interest. We were scouting Gyokeres all of last year. We were scouting him for a long time, and ultimately, as far as I could tell, the club decided that they didn't want to go for him. So that's why I think now it's different. Is that the recruitment team had pretty much already decided he wasn't a target. And then Andrea Berta's come in and suddenly now, we've got a strong interest in him, which suggests Andrea Berta is the guy that's leading the interest in him. And so then now it's like, I think it's quite an interesting dynamic because it's like, who's actually got the power? Can Andrea Berta come in and straight away pull off a big move like that? Given that the club had already previously decided against it, it'll be interesting. It will be interesting.
You want Arteta out of the power. You want Arteta. You're fully behind no Arteta, even though he had some good signings.
Not out of the power. The problem is I don't want Andrea Berta to have the power either. I kind of
Why?
I'd rather the recruitment team did. I don't want one guy to look at a player. Like, does Andrea Berta really know about football? He's a businessman. He's not. He
had great signings at Atletico Madrid.
Some great ones, some not so great ones. Joao Felix was his most expensive signing. That wasn't
okay. Hold on, Joao Felix. Okay, there is a difference, and this is very important in signings. Pedro Neto signing for Chelsea, and this is why I don't like the notion of Pedro Neto. Oh my God, they got it wrong. Pedro Neto not working for Chelsea has nothing to do with the signing itself. Darwin Núñez, by the way, the signing of Darwin Núñez for Liverpool on its own is actually a great signing. He was coming from a 30-goal season. He was playing in the Champions League. He was very good. The fact that it failed has nothing to do with the signing, because Pedro Neto is an established player in the Premier League, and Chelsea signing him is a good one. It's something that every club wanted. Joao Felix was the upcoming star at that time for Benfica, and Atletico Madrid snatched him from under the noses of a lot of big clubs that wanted him. I'm just going to give the people that made the signing work the credit. Like, for example, I'm going to give you an example, Rory. Give me an established player in the world right now, for example. Kvaratskhelia, for example. He was established at Napoli, right?
Yeah.
If Arsenal went and snatched Kvaratskhelia, at that time, it's a 10 out of 10 signing. At that time. Him working or not working is a completely different story. However, on the other hand, signing Kai Havertz, because it didn't work out at Chelsea, because he wasn't playing well, if the signing doesn't work, I'm going to slag off the people that signed him. Do you get the difference? You get the difference between. That's why Darwin Núñez, people say, oh, Darwin Núñez is a failed signing. Yes, that's in hindsight, but at that time, he was a good signing. Diego Jota was a good signing. And this is why I'm saying Gyokeres is an established footballer that has done amazing in the Champions League, that's done amazing. If it doesn't work, it is not on Berta and the recruitment team. It is basically because it can go down to environment, league type, manager, system, challenges.
Yeah.
That is where I am in terms of signing.
So I agree, but the only difference relative to the other ones effectively is that we already know that the club looked extensively at Gyokeres before and decided against it. So I already know that previously the club have considered him strongly and then decided that there were reasons not to go for him. And then Andrea Berta is the single factor that's come in and changed that. So I know this is him. This isn't the club going, we want this guy, go and get him. This is him coming in and going, I want this guy and I'm going to go and get him. And look, I love Gyokeres. If anyone that's watched my channel for a long time knows, like, that was my dream signing last summer. And he's had arguably an even better season this season. So I'd be buzzing with the signing. My only concern would be, what were the reasons that the club decided against him in the first place? And has that changed? That's my only concern. And it was one of the first things I said when we got rid of Edu was I didn't want someone to come in and almost rip up the plans to assert, like, to be like, okay, I'm the guy now. So I'm not going to do that. Almost out of principle of like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go for Sesko, even though you've decided as a club that's the way to go. I'm going to come and do this because I want it to be clear that I'm running the show. And again, if that works out, which I think I think it could work out. I think it probably would work out. I think Gyokeres is.
There is
very,
nothing
very good
against Gyokeres, sorry. This is what people say, the negative things. At the current moment, there is nothing to indicate that Gyokeres would not work in the Premier League. Physically, he is very strong. He's super quick. He played in the Championship, so he's familiar with the physicality of how English football works, and we know it's different than other leagues. He won leagues before, so he's a winner. He was coached under a very good manager in Amram. There is anyone that just keeps saying negative stuff about this signing. You just want to be negative. You just want to slag off the club.
But I disagree because, like I said, I've been all over him as a player for a long time. But there's no such thing as the perfect signing. If he was the perfect signing that had no potential negatives, he would have already been snapped up. We wouldn't have found a reason not to do it last summer. Chelsea would have done it. United, like, there are certain doubts. Firstly, his age, the fact that he's only in his second kind of amazing season at the age of, or he'll be 27 by the time you actually sign him. That's an interesting thing to look at. That's slightly abnormal. The fact that he hasn't actually done it in a major league, and we've seen plenty of players that have come from Portugal, played very well in Portugal, scored lots of goals in Portugal. It's not quite translated. I get that he's played in the Championship, so the physical side of it, he's perhaps used to. But even in the Championship, whilst they are physical, they're not necessarily the most high-quality defenders. So yeah, I'm just trying to be balanced. I think there's, you've got to look at both sides of it. There is a reason that we actively decided against him previously. So they're
Maybe it's because Arteta was, again, a guy that wants to sign project players. Gyokeres, a young and upcoming player, and maybe Berta came in and said no.
No, I don't think I don't think it's Arteta. I think it's the recruitment team. I think the recruitment team are the ones that turned down Gyokeres. Arteta's wanted numerous strikers that were of an older age profile, including Ollie Watkins in January. So,
my guy Slevin here is saying that maybe it's about the price. Because you know that the price was very high. They wanted £85 million or something like this.
Yeah, they reckon
last summer.
They reckon that's come down to about 60 or 70 million now that they'll accept in the summer. So 60 or 70 million, it's still a lot of money. And for a player that at the end of
not a lot of money. Mateta might cost 50 million.
Sorry?
In this day and age, Mateta might cost 50 million.
Yeah, but you know, he's 27 years old, or he will be 27 years old by the time you sign him. So you sign him on a 4 or 5 year deal. By the end of his first contract, he's already going to drop in price quite a lot. It's, don't get me wrong, he's not old, but he's not young.
I think he's the perfect age for you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, for the here and now, yeah.
But that's who you're looking at, here and now. You're not looking for future players again.
No, well, yes and no. You kind of still are, because money is still a factor.
Some assets at the club need to be here and now.
Yeah.
Also, a 27-year-old, if you put them on a 5-year deal, they'll be decent until they're 32 as a goal scorer.
Oh, yeah.
Harry Kane is obviously getting to those ages, and he's putting up ridiculous numbers. Lewandowski, Benzema, I mean, they won the Ballon d'Or at over 30, Benzema, didn't he?
Yeah. And you'd hope that because actually his career has taken a while to kick into gear, he's not got as many miles in those legs as a lot of 27-year-olds probably would. So I feel like I've come across completely not the way that I wanted to here.
You did. You've seen the chat. Probably he did.
Anyone that's ever watched my channel will know. Literally, I was like captain of the Gyokeres steam train for over a year. I would love him at the club. All I'm trying to do. I feel like a lot of people are like, Andrea Berta's a genius, and it's going to be the most incredible signing. And I'm just trying to.
Would he be your number one, Rory, or have you got like a preference to someone else?
Well, Isak would still be the number one.
Right, okay, fair. Yeah.
But then you'd be looking at it, close to double the price for Isak. So, yeah, it's one of those.
You guys need a striker now to win.
We do.
So wouldn't he be ideal now? Keep him for like 3-4 seasons. Oh, hello, by the way. Thanks, Mo, for the invite. Timing is much better now with the time difference. So
yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you'd need a striker now. Like it's nice to see you on a Benjamin Sesko or whatever it is, like for later on. But like if all you're missing is a striker in front of goal, this might be a good opportunity. Spend the 60 mil, whatever it is. You might win the league next season, win some trophies, and then after that, you can still potentially sell him on to someone else in his later years, though.
Yeah, hopefully that's the dream. The dream is that he translates to the Premier League straight away, which I think most elements of his game should translate. In terms of we create so many chances, he is a menace in the box. I don't really see any Premier League defenders or, outside of, I don't know, a Van Dijk or whatever, many Premier League defenders that will be able to handle him physically. So, yeah.
Do you think that's a bit of a myth nowadays with the adapting to the Premier League? Because I feel like if a player's good enough, they come in, they hit the ground running. I look at some players back in the day when the Premier League was a little bit different and the style of football was very, very odd compared to most continental football. I feel like the adaptation was a lot harder to make that transition. But now I feel like the football that's played in the Premier League is maybe there's a slight difference in pace. And we've heard some players like Koulibaly state that there was an obvious difference in between that and Serie A. But I feel like most players now that come in, I'm struggling to think of that many that really don't.
Why I'm struggling to think of if any that actually adapted right away. Rodri didn't. Enzo Fernandez took a bit.
I was just talking about strikers actually, but
I'd say Marmoush has come in and pretty much.
Even Isak took a bit.
Yeah, but Isak was young. Isak was still raw.
Isak's numbers weren't too dissimilar from where he was at Sociedad. You might argue that he's matured since he's been at Newcastle.
Yeah.
Like I'm struggling to think of any player.
Julian Timber's coming.
Yeah, Julian Timber's the one.
Haaland obviously come in and didn't struggle at all. Julian Alvarez, another player, very, very young, didn't struggle as a striker. I think there's a number of strikers. That's really where my point was. I think midfielders is a whole different issue.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of midfielders that have shown there's differences. But as a striker, I feel like
I think
most
if you've been
strikers
doing it in the
are playing
Champions League as well, which Gyokeres has, I think that suggests that you can adapt to different styles and different teams.
I think people saying Højlund as well. By the way, we're talking about the guy that got 9 goals in his season at Atalanta. We're not talking about a guy that
you've got to compare. You've got to compare it to players that are
every time now I think about Højlund would have been an Arsenal player, and I'm like, oh my god,
Wow.
because Arsenal were in for him at that time, and he chose Man United. And I was thinking
the difference would have been for Arsenal, Højlund wouldn't have come in and had to start week in, week out. I think that was the biggest thing that killed Højlund was that United, he had no one to fall back on. He had no one to take the responsibility from him to score goals or do anything. I think that was
and no one to educate him as well.
Can I tell you guys something for real? Like when I'm thinking about what Rory said earlier, and guys, before we go on, there's over 500 people in the house. We're only on 70 likes. We need to get to 200, 300 likes. Also, Rory's channel in the description, Nick's channel in the description now, Tom Little, Dan as well. I actually think, that's my opinion, I think, the word I think is very important, that the reason why he didn't sign Gyokeres, apart from the price, is that the form that Kai Havertz was in at the end of last season. And Kai Havertz would have been the starter regardless of who joins the club if it wasn't Haaland, if it wasn't something like that. And that is why maybe Mikel Arteta, and also he had still Gabriel Jesus, this is why maybe Arsenal chose to wait for Xisco for another reason. But because Kai Havertz is not cutting it now for Arsenal, now they are looking at more established strikers, not young. It's the only reason, apart from the price, that I can think of. Because I've done a lot of shows with other fans that still wanted Kai Havertz to be the starter, even if Gyokeres arrived. Because of 14 goals in the second half of the season is not little. That's a lot of goals, basically, for Kai Havertz. So maybe Arteta thought about that and thought, yeah, maybe we need Xisco for the next years. So Gyokeres is established now and he's older. But now they're looking at Havertz and like, yeah, you're not cutting it. We need another striker to stop for you. Maybe it's Arsenal fans' fault because you guys keep singing Kai Havertz's name in the stadium and Arteta believed you guys that you want Kai Havertz to start. Maybe. I can't think of any other reason, to be honest. I can't think of any other reason why you would go for Gyokeres now and not last season, unless you believe that you had enough firepower up top that you wanted an upcoming striker instead of an established one.
I don't know. I think it might have been money, age, and the fact that he'd not done it. You know, at that point he'd only had one season in Portugal.
Was there not murmurs about concerns around his playing style from Arsenal? Was that not a thing that I remember us talking about?
Some, because there was a lot. That's more like online fans,
right?
That people basically, because a lot of the goals that you see him score, he runs in behind, running in behind, right? Yeah. And there's this kind of, there's almost a myth that Arsenal never get chances like that because we play against low blocks and we spend a lot of the game trying to break through that low block. There's like this. There is a myth that we never get opportunities like that. The reality is we do. We don't get as many as he probably does at Sporting. We do get opportunities like that. But these days, when we get those opportunities, especially since Saka's been out, we haven't got the pace. The only player that's got the pace is Martinelli, but then you get the ball to him and it's like road runner. He just runs in a straight line. So, yeah, it's one of those. We do get those opportunities sometimes. We just don't really, we've not had a striker like Gyokeres to take advantage of it. So, yeah, I don't think that's an issue. And also, like, so many of the goals that he scores, you feed it into his feet inside the box and he just hands off the defender, one touch turn, bang, goal. Like, that doesn't bother me in the slightest, to be honest. The sort of
and he's very quick as well.
Yeah, he's quick,
super quick,
strong, powerful.
Very
if
strong.
He drew up like a Premier League striker. He would be pretty much ticking most of the boxes, wouldn't he? To be fair, like I don't see that, but I just sort of remember that discussion.
Yeah, no, it definitely was a discussion.
Do you think Jesus comes into it as well, Rory? Like the fact that you've now probably looked at Jesus and gone, he's probably not going to be the player we thought we had this time last year with another injury.
Well, I think the plan was to sell Jesus this summer, so the fact that we've still got him for another year's of pain. And an expensive one. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the plan will be for him if they actually think that we can get him back and use him at some point. Maybe that factors into it. I don't know.
What was Kai Havertz fit at that time?
What When?
If you get Gyokeres, where will Kai Havertz fit?
We'll have 2 strikers.
I
still
Havertz
think
is
Havertz-
versatile,
though.
isn't he?
Sorry?
I said Havertz is versatile, though. He
Yeah,
can play in a
I
number
think
of
Havertz will
positions.
still be used in midfield a lot, yeah.
In midfield.
I know people didn't like it
two
previously, but
strikers.
the only time we actually saw him play significant minutes in midfield was when he first arrived. And he didn't look good up front or in midfield at that point because his confidence was shot. Since he went on that run, like the scoring 14 goals where his confidence was up, he was playing well. Not really seen him play in midfield since then. So yeah, if he could play off Gyokeres, they play off.
What else is that? What another signing that Arsenal need? Is it a lot of people now are talking about the left winger, but also there is the attacking midfielder, the Cole Palmer ilk of player, the
we don't need
Verts,
that.
the Musiala.
We've
Why
got
not?
that in-house.
Martin Odegaard.
Yeah, we've
And
got
Nwaneri.
Odegaard, and then you've got Nwaneri, and then you've got Max Dowman coming up behind as well. So I think if you don't get me wrong, for the here and now, yeah, maybe you want an established. I still have full faith in Odegaard pulling it back, to be honest. But even if you don't, I don't think you go and spend 80, 100 million on a Verts or a Musiala now for that position when you've got those players coming through. In terms of what you can actually fix right here and right now is the left wing. I think we've all come to terms with the fact that Martinelli will never be.
You have struggled.
Trossard won't be.
Did a show last Thursday, and Don sent me a graph, just a stat. The Arsenal midfield really struggled to create from open play. The midfield. Saka creates a lot of chances, by the way, on the right side. But you struggle to create from the open play in the midfield. And that is something that's why you go down the wings all the time. So this is why I'm saying that you might need an attacking midfielder that will create, that will score goals from the midfield to play behind the striker in case it doesn't work. Odegaard has not been good this season. Can he go back to that form? Next season, should Arsenal go in on the hope that he goes back to his best form, you should have assurances at least to get someone that plays. Okay, people say Gibbs White, for example. I think Gibbs White is good. I don't think he's Arsenal material. He's title-winning material yet. But there are other players around in the world. There are playmakers behind the forwards. Odegaard doesn't have to be that playmaker. Maybe it doesn't suit him. Maybe Odegaard can be an 8. Maybe you can get another midfield and play Rice at the 6, Odegaard and another playmaker. I think Nwaneri is good on the right side. He should be the backup for Saka. They should rotate. And I think he should get an attacking midfielder. People say Cunha. I don't think Cunha is a playmaker. Cunha is basically a false 9. He's a Firmino kind player.
Yeah,
I think you should try to get a creative midfielder in that middle. You shouldn't go next season with the same midfielder. Even if you sign Zubamendi, I think you should get an attacking midfielder, to be honest.
Yeah, but didn't they have issues when Odegaard was out creating from the middle, everything around White to Saka? Wasn't that the case?
Yep. Yeah, I think
but they're not playing with a fix. Oh, sorry, Rory, go on.
Yeah.
No, but this is the thing as well, is that like Odegaard creates an awful lot. I think if you actually go and look up Odegaard's chance creation by himself, his numbers are exceptional. Maybe not so much this season, but then he was out injured, and then there was a small window where both him and Saka were there, and then Saka was out injured. Like that partnership is, I think they've played 12 games together this season. So if Odegaard's numbers are low this season, well, that's more the reason. But also, that area of the pitch is so congested because teams shift over to cover both Odegaard and Saka. They know that's where the threat is. You fix the left-hand side, you put a far more significant threat on the left-hand side. Teams can't do that because if you switch it to a Nico Williams who's 1v1 with your fullback, that's suddenly a very dangerous situation. So I feel like you fix the left-hand side, you free up more space in that area anyway. Odegaard has a bit more space. And I think Nwaneri long-term will be more of an Odegaard than I think he needs to develop a bit. But you look at the goals that he's scoring from the exact sort of pockets that Odegaard sits in. And Saka, Nwaneri is too good to just play second fiddle to Saka. And you're not going to have both of them in your squad and not be using both of them at the same time. So I think you could also move Odegaard to the other side. I think in quite a lot of games, I think you could have Rice, Odegaard, and Nwaneri as your midfield.
I'm not convinced that Nwaneri can be an attacking midfielder now with his age in the Premier League. A couple of times I watched him, he wasn't great in the attacking midfielder in the Premier League, to be honest.
But again, he
I think
didn't
it's a
have.
bet.
But he had neither Saka nor Ødegaard really with him. So I feel like if you put him in that environment where he's got Saka, where he's got Ødegaard on the other side, he can be. Physically, I think he still has to develop a bit for that. But
Regarding Bukayo Saka, should he play against Fulham at all tomorrow?
Yep.
I actually think so, but doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care if he starts off the bench. But people are just like, don't start him. I don't know, like, to be honest, how fit he is.
He's fit. I don't understand what these people want. Like, people want him to. I don't really understand it. Every doctor, every physio, every whatever will go, he's fit now. Like, no, just don't. Don't let him play for the next 5 months. Just save him for next season. That'd be beneficial if you keep him out.
And they gave up on the Real Madrid game as well. Like, they don't want even to play him against Real Madrid.
And all of these mentality warriors that accept nothing but winning have already thrown in the towel and want us not to use Saka against Real Madrid because we've already lost. Because they're these real mentality, hyper mentality, weirdos.
I don't understand. Like, he gives Arsenal probably a 5 to 10% extra chance.
Imagine telling Bukayo Saka, an athlete of his level, we know you're completely fully fit and you could play at the Bernabeu, but we're just not going to play you.
But we're losing to Real Madrid anyway, so we're not playing you.
Yeah, so
it's crazy.
There's
a chance. There's a chance he comes off the bench and he does something, affects the game. It's a tight game. There's only one goal in there. He comes on, gets an assist or scores a goal. But I think people are thinking we've seen injuries like this reoccur so often after they've come back that I think there's PTSD from other players' injuries where they're like, let's not risk him because we don't want him to get re-injured again. Then he's out for longer thereafter. It could be rivals maybe doing a bit of hope and cope. Arsenal fans, some maybe actually thinking because Arteta's also got a history of bringing players back through from injury and playing them through injury as well. Maybe that's where they're second guessing themselves.
Yeah, but even I mean, Arteta said today that they've already held Saka back. Like, there was a feeling that he could have played before the international break. I think he might have done if we'd still been right in the title race. As it was, there was kind of no point by that point. But he's been out, I think. But if he was to play tomorrow, he'd been out for 14 weeks. That's at the right at the top end of how long his injury was meant to keep him out for. Like, I don't really. It's a weird one. And like you said, and maybe it is the PTSD of some players that have had recurring hamstring injuries, but it's like, you can't just keep them out indefinitely because you're scared that they'll re-damage the injury. And a lot of the players that have had recurring ones because they've not had surgery. Like, more often than not, they do it once. They don't have the surgery because it does keep you out for quite a lot longer. They don't have the surgery, then they re-injure it, maybe 2-3 times, and then they go, oh, actually, now we'll have the surgery. And by that point, you've already shredded it. I think the fact that he did it once, they did the surgery. I think the actual specific type of surgery that he had, I think that that's developed a lot in recent years in terms of how effective it is. And it's like the club just wouldn't risk him.
That's what I said that on the football terrace.
Yeah, I agree.
I swear I said that on the football terrace. I said that Arteta knows that the league is done, that he's not going to win the league. If Bukayo Saka's not fit, they are not going to risk him in the Premier League. Going to wait.
Not now.
Like, they're not. People just treat the clubs that they're stupid. Like, the Arsenal are playing for nothing in the Premier League. The Fulham and the Everton game are nothing games for Arsenal. If they win one game and lose one game, it doesn't matter. It won't affect anything for Arsenal. But watch if Arsenal lose one of these games, people take a fuss about it. I know that it's a preparation for the Real Madrid game, but with all due respect, Fulham and Everton are not going to play the same way that Real Madrid play. It's not going to happen.
But also, like, if you look, people love to look at the examples of where players have had a recurring injury, or people keep saying, "Oh, there's no guarantee he'll come back the player he was." I mean, he's been out for 3 months. Like, he's not been out for a year. And you look at someone like Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto tore both of his hamstrings last season. This season, he's been consistently fit. His pace looks like it's still there, and that was both of his hamstrings. So you don't remember the examples of players that have done their hamstring, come back and carried on with their career, because that's just a normal thing to happen. You remember the examples of players that haven't. And people use like Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne is in his mid-30s.
It's 10 years difference between the two players.
Yeah, and also he played through that hamstring injury to the point where, he said he played the final however many games of the 22-23 season, the treble-winning season. He was playing with a hamstring injury. So it's completely different. I think people are over-egging the fear of Bukayo Saka playing.
Do you think it will be unfair to still have the same level of expectation for what you might have had 3 months ago prior to the injury?
I think that might be a good explanation for it.
Yeah, 100%. You'd expect him to be rusty, as anyone would be after 3 months. So I think if people are expecting him to drop into, I would be surprised, to be honest, if he starts either of the Fulham or Everton games. I would imagine he'll get maybe 20 minutes against Fulham, 30 against Everton, because we've got 3 games in the space of 8 days with Fulham, Everton, and then Real Madrid. You're going to want to prepare him to hopefully start against Real Madrid. But if you're saying that's your first start effectively it'd be 3.5 months at that point. You'd be foolish to think he's going to drop in and be at the level that
and maybe under an hour of football, like on a pitch as well.
Yeah. But 70% rusty Bukayo Saka is still better than any other option.
Would you start Nwaneri on the left at all?
Yes. Well, yes, maybe. I don't know. Against Real Madrid, I might not start him, honestly.
Who would you start as a striker? Any of you guys think that you should drop Mikel Merino and have Trossard up top and Martinelli on the left?
No, I'd have Trossard off the left and Martinelli up top. Trossard up top is just... Rudiger would just bully the life out of him. Like, absolutely bully him. So I'd have him off the left, Martinelli through the middle. That pace through the middle genuinely provides you like an outlet, something that Rudiger and Asensio would actually have to think about. I don't think Trossard does that.
Do you guys think that, I know we're going to speak about the Madrid game in a week from now before it happens, but do you guys think that Arsenal should try to practice a little bit the Madrid game or just go full throttle in the next 2 games in the Premier League? Real Madrid are not going to defend against Arsenal. Should Arteta try something different in the next 2 games? At least as a preparation, or they should just go for the win.
Well, what would you do?
It's hard if you want to show
Everton
your
and Fulham
hand.
Are going to play so different. Fulham at the Emirates, and then Everton away. Like they're going to play so differently to Real Madrid. I don't feel like you wouldn't be able to even close.
Imagine you sit back against
what
Everton.
Real Madrid are going to do.
Right? Everton are going to go. What are we supposed to do here?
We'll both be sat back. I don't know how.
Ball's just in the middle. It'd just be like a game of dodgeball.
No one's touching it.
You have the ball. No, you have the ball. No, you have the ball. No, you have the ball. It's not going to work, man.
Yeah.
I just think you've got to be smart, Mo. If you show your hand too early as well, Real Madrid will be expecting you to play in a certain way, and they can prepare for it. If Arteta rocks up on the night and they've been working on something under wraps in training, and then it shocks Real Madrid, something like that can win you a tie in the Champions League. So I would expect if anything happens, it'll be worked on in training, and actually what they'll probably do is put the Fulham and Everton games preparation on the back burner and prioritize Real Madrid's focus, and they'll just get through those games with habits and things they've worked on and patterns that they've got. They've obviously got obviously you're talking about that graph that Don showed. They've obviously got very specific patterns and an idea of wanting to play, which I think you need to remember. Just going back to that graph, is that Arteta's obviously identified areas of strength for Arsenal to focus on playing. And sometimes those graphs forget about what the manager might have identified in his team.
I hear what you guys are saying. Do you guys think that if Arteta beats Real Madrid and reaches the semi-final, it's a little bit of a saving grace this season? Do you think that some of the people are going to say, yeah, we know now why you lost the league because of the injuries and all the stuff, but when you got your players back, you are putting in.
Yeah, normal people will, but
normal people.
But we don't operate in a space where normal people tend to have their voices heard. So
knocking Real Madrid out of the Champions League is a feat that just absolutely.
It's the definition of a progress. It's a definition of a progress. From losing to Bayern Munich in the quarterfinal last year to gaining experience and maybe beating Real Madrid to reach a semi-final of the Champions League is the definition of a progress.
Yeah,
you have failed in the league 100%, but there's context to it.
I see it in the chat as well. If Arsenal beat Real Madrid, then there's no reason why they shouldn't beat Villa or PSG or Inter or Barca or Bayern Munich in the final as well. If Real Madrid are the pinnacle and you beat Real Madrid, then you should be taking out the competition. That's what people are going to be saying after that. And
Actually, I
that's
think it's
going to be
wrong.
the narrative.
Arsenal beating Real Madrid does not make them favourites against PSG because,
but
they
Real Madrid
still
are
play the
peak.
second leg
I know
in
that.
Paris.
There's also
I know that.
There's something to be said about getting yourself, and not that these players should worry about this, but there's the attraction of playing Real Madrid at the Bernabeu is such a massive moment, a massive game in players' careers that you might almost consider it easier to motivate yourself to shine out on that stage than potentially if you get Aston Villa. It could then become like a potential banana skin like that game's been in the Premier League in recent years. So look, there's also a clash of styles here. I think Emery also seems to, if say you were to get Aston Villa or something like that, Unai Emery seems to have something that Arteta struggles to work out at times, whereas maybe against Real Madrid, there's a team in Real Madrid that sometimes take a while to get into the tie or into the fixture as well. So if you hit them early or shock them and surprise them, you can have a chance. So I don't think it's always just Real Madrid. You beat Real Madrid, that means you win.
Also, like at that top level, like those games can swing on moments of luck or whatever. So it's Man City were the best team in the world probably for however many years. It still took them however many campaigns to win.
And once that pendulum goes the other way for Madrid, it's almost like the momentum, there's just no stopping them, because we've seen it before. They get one, they get an next. A Hosselu, obviously we saw the Manchester City game a few seasons ago.
Yeah.
That's why I say the people that say 0% is crazy. One red card, one penalty, one set piece can change the whole tie. Not even one game. And Arsenal are capable. Like, people are treating Arsenal. Okay, I've had this in a solo show the other day. I asked, do you think, I'm sure Nick knows the question. I asked people, do you think Dortmund have a bigger chance of beating Barcelona than Arsenal Real Madrid? And people said yes. And I'm like, I'm just going to put it in context. The 12th team in the Bundesliga against the first team in La Liga, or the second team in the Premier League versus the second team in the Premier League. They said, we still think Dortmund have a bigger chance. And I'm like, it's just banter at the time. It's not real.
Yeah. It's literally because it's Arsenal. That's why. That's the only reason why. Let's be real. Yeah, that's the only reason why. That's
the thing. People say we've got... People say we've got no chance of beating Madrid. They'll say Madrid are going to smash Arsenal. They'll say Arsenal fans are deluded for thinking they could even possibly win. And then if we did win, it'd be, what a trophy. What a trophy that is. They beat we've beat Real Madrid trophy. That's how it would go. We know how it works.
It depends how it's celebrated. The thing is, well, because they had him in the final last year. Well, it was Dortmund and Madrid in the final, wasn't it, last year? So maybe that's where they're thinking, they got to a final. Surely, Dortmund have a better chance. But then again, it's not the same players. Or some players have changed and it's different now. But that's what you get with the online banter, man. Everyone knows that. That's the narrative, the way it goes. As much as you want to take the piss, realistically.
We'll celebrate at the Bernabeu after a win, and people ask why they're celebrating. Oh, they're so arrogant.
Hey, man. If that happens,
you haven't won the trophy yet.
That's why.
I actually think if Arsenal win at the Emirates, it's a good result. It's an achievement. People don't know. This is Real Madrid. Like, they are the champions of Europe. I think you're gonna nick it. People think you're gonna lose both legs. And if I'm looking objectively at this, I genuinely think that Arsenal should be against Real Madrid favorites at your ground. Like, I'm watching Real Madrid and they're not phenomenal.
I don't think they're brilliant this season.
They've been smacked by other teams in the league.
They turned up at Anfield. Don't get me wrong. Liverpool at that point were very, very good throughout. I mean, the whole start of the season and into December. But Liverpool cruised past them at Anfield, and I get that was in the league phase, so maybe Real Madrid weren't as up for it. But yeah, I don't feel like this Real Madrid team is anywhere near some of the Madrid teams that we've seen, and I think it's been, and they've got a few players missing as well. Tchouameni's going to be suspended for the first leg. Ferland Mendy might be injured or is coming back from injury. He's been out for a while. There's opportunities.
What about the others that might be suspended as well? Has any progress on that yet, or what's the story there with Rudiger and Mbappe?
Don't actually know what the story is on those ones, but. Yeah, and then even if I think actually as well, Modric and Camavinga are both one booking away from suspension as well. So if they have to start in place of Tchouameni, and then one of them gets
a yellow
a booking as well,
100%, guys.
Opportunities.
We're not even on 200 likes. Hit the like button, guys. It helps the channel massively. The like button looks like thumbs up underneath the live chat. Welcome to everybody that is new, that is watching us for the first time. Make sure to like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're 2 subscribers away from the target of 30,400. Moving on from Arsenal. 45 minutes is enough. See if you beat Fulham tomorrow. We have Milan also on Wednesday in the cup, so it's a different story. But it's a home and away league, so we're playing away. I'm going to play home after this. Chelsea selling Madueke. Increasing reports of Chelsea selling Madueke now. A lot of people think that Madueke is Chelsea's best winger at the current moment. Chelsea looking to revamp the whole wingers again by selling Sancho. They're going to sell Joao Felix. They might sell Madueke, get completely new wingers. There is the reports, of course, of Enzo Fernandez being linked to Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid. So, do you think that Madueke should be sold first?
I don't really mind if he is or he isn't, to be honest with you. I don't think Chelsea have an out-and-out best winger. I probably wouldn't say it's Madueke if we had to choose. I think maybe he's someone that's suited more so to Maresca's system than some of the others. But to be honest with you, I think Chelsea have... I think you can get away with Pedro Neto, but bar that, maybe the situation we've got with wingers and their output just probably isn't good enough, to be honest with you, for what could be out there for similar prices that we could get for selling some of these guys.
Yeah, but how much are you going to get for Madueke, to be honest? And also, they are looking to sell him to a direct rival in Aston Villa.
In excess, well, they're not bothered about that. They loaned Dazassi to him to them in January to strengthen their defense.
When we're obviously brain cells, to be honest, just a lack of brain cells from them.
There was a quote obviously a few weeks ago that Bodie said in a presser with Bloomberg, and he said the issue we've got is the competitiveness of the Premier League, and he's basically saying that he'd rather there not be competition, and it was almost like a closed shop. And I think that probably runs through the club now, that worrying about other teams in the Premier League isn't really something they're bothered about. Whereas I think in years gone by, that would have been a huge issue, strengthening rivals. I don't think they're too bothered about it at the moment. So look, they'll sell players for the right price if it allows them to continue with the model that they've got, to be honest. I think he'll get over 40 million for someone like Madueke with his age and his profile of what he brings.
And then you go and get someone better.
We've got
player out, player in.
We've got Kendry Paez. Apparently, he's going to be part of the World Cup, Club World Cup squad. We still don't know his future and where that lies at Chelsea. We've got Esteval coming in. We've got Neto, obviously, in the setup. I believe there'll be a couple of recruitments in wide areas because of Mudrik's situation, and more than likely 1 or 2 will go in Sancho and Madueke.
Kendry Paez is 17 years old.
Yeah,
so is Esteval still 17?
18, 17, something like that.
Yeah.
Both of them are similar age.
This is crazy. Selling, like, you've actually got, like, don't get me wrong, I don't think Madueke is the most amazing winger, but, you know, he's proven that he's got output in the Premier League. If you start selling them before Paez, Esteval have come in and actually proven that they can translate from the Brazilian league. Where's Kendry Paez playing? Is he still in Brazil as well?
No, I think he's Colombian or
Colombian.
Ecuador or something like that.
He even plays in Colombia, yeah.
But either way, to be selling those players, and then you're like, okay, so if they come in and they don't translate, then you're falling back on like your second choice wingers from this season.
I think there'll also be players that come in that are we're not aware of who they are. Similar to when Pedro Neto came in last summer, I think players will come in similar to that. There are rumours of Leao. There are rumours of a couple of other players as well. But I think with Chelsea, they kept that Neto deal so quiet. I think with their biggest signings, that's something we might see as a repeat pattern. I think they probably like going about their business quite quietly in that sense.
Yeah, to be honest with you,
do you know why I think that
don't
is?
understand how it works.
When they were publicly chasing players, they actually were penalised in transfer fees massively. And I think they saw Liverpool get the likes of McAllister for a real cut price deal. When they got Enzo Fernandez for like 3-4 times the price, they probably looked at it and thought, we need to go under the radar here without putting stuff out there.
The problem is I lost complete faith at Chelsea, to be honest. After the beginning of the season, I had complete faith at Chelsea. And then now I lost complete faith. even though there are some good moments for Chelsea and good numbers for Chelsea, and it's not about making Champions League or not. People think that Leao might join Chelsea. What if Chelsea don't make Champions League? Is Leao going to leave Milan to go to Chelsea? Chelsea don't pay good wages at the current moment. They don't pay these high wages to attract top names. So you have to attract them by competition. You know what I mean? By being challengers. And are Chelsea going to challenge with Kendry Páez and Estevao? I don't think so, to be honest with you. I don't think so. I think you'll need to keep your best players. Maresca or not.
Chelsea aren't going to challenge with Madueke either.
But you improve on Madueke. Okay, so
correct me
basically
if I'm
you
wrong
improve
anyway,
on Madueke.
We're talking about Madueke being our best output from a wide player. The guy's got hat-trick against Wolves pretty much like 3 games into the season. Then he got another goal against Wolves. And I think he's got 2 other goals. So he's got 6 goals against 3 teams in the Premier League. We're not looking at someone that's drastically going to change Chelsea's fortunes here. I think he's a good player. I think there's been obvious issues in regards to training. And I think there's been obvious suspensions that have been out there in the public eye and been told to miss out on match day squads. And I think that's an issue. And maybe Chelsea are looking at it that this guy's got a lot of talent. I believe Noni has a lot more talent and a lot more to give in football. But I think there's a lot of work to do off the pitch that I think he may have to do somewhere else if Chelsea view him as a viable option to generate some profit. Although they bought him in for quite a bit of money. I don't think he was much below 30 million, to be honest with you.
No, he wasn't. He was 30-something million, if I'm not mistaken. So nobody sees Chelsea as a threat next season to the title at all under this ownership.
I don't think Chelsea view themselves as a threat, by the way. I think there's been so much said about lack of competition and not wanting to be in those positions realistically with what the manager said and what a couple of the guys have said at the top of the club and who are making big decisions. They've not stated an intent to go and win things. They've not publicly said that, and they've publicly stated other things about running the club consistently, generating a profit as being more of a target than winning and being competitive in the Premier League. I think Chelsea are now a club that are business first before results, definitely.
Well, that mentality is long gone then, man. The Abramovich era is long gone if that's the case. No more buying players, mid-20s, late 20s, ready to win, come here for a season or 2, win something, and then off you go again. That's long gone now. You get 17-year-olds. In the long run, they might come good, but how long until that brings some rewards?
Yeah, I was just looking them up. So that Kendry Páez is playing in for a team that's 6th in the Ecuadorian league. And I think he got 8 goals in 35 games last year. And then Estevao's playing for Palmeiras, and he's on 5 goals, no assists in 15 games this season. So it's not like they're putting up insane numbers. I think, for Chelsea to have gone from bringing in the best in the world in their prime to relying on, kids that are putting up all right numbers.
These guys might never play consistently. They might be flip for profit again.
Maybe.
I think Estevao will. I think enough has been spent on Estevao, and I think there's so much hype about him as a young, exciting player coming from Brazil that I think he'll get minutes, and I think players are going to be moved out of the way for him to have a chance. We don't know how he takes that, but I think Páez is probably more likely the player that probably ends up in the decision of, does he go to Strasbourg? Does he go out on loan? Does he really have a chance to break into Chelsea's team? Because how many players playing in the Ecuadorian league are going to be looking to get a start in the Premier League, especially at 17, with the type of player he is as well? I'm not too sure he'll be ready to go in the Prem. But Estevao, I think, look, the kid's getting chosen for the Brazil team. There's something about him, and he's going to cost Chelsea a lot of money. And I believe there was talk about him coming in as a 10 as well. So
isn't there another? I actually think, tactically speaking, which is, I want to move on from the transfers. Big up, guys. Finally, the Premier back. Number 20 is loading for Liverpool. Yes, Man United fans will not chat to them. I actually was thinking about this yesterday, and I genuinely think that Chelsea need to have a more balanced midfielder, and Cole Palmer need to play on the wing. This experiment of Cole Palmer being at the center of the pitch, I think it needs to be done now. And Cole Palmer needs to go back to playing on the wing, invert inside, play as a number 10 from the side, and have a more balanced midfield, especially It's Chelsea are going to keep the likes of Malo Gusto, Colwell, Fofana. You need a Lavia and a Caicedo next to each other, and Enzo Fernandez maybe ahead of them, being the number 8 that he is. And Cole Palmer has to play on the right side, because I can't think of any other reason that Cole Palmer form has dipped other than people are figuring him out in the center of the pitch. And Maresca is not finding the right solution for him. Yes, he has missed a couple of chances. Yes, he has been not great lately, but it might not be down to him. It might be down to the system that Maresca is playing. And he has played last season very good on that right side. And I think he should move there. And I think he will be great for Chelsea if he moves there. But at the current moment, you cannot continue with this. Yes, we are waiting for the last 9 games. You're going to play Brentford away, and you're going to play Spurs, and then you're going to play Newcastle, if I'm not mistaken. These games, Chelsea must win, right? To make top 5. Because Newcastle are behind you, but with a game in hand. If you basically lose to Newcastle, you're behind them with them having a game in hand. And their game in hand is against Crystal Palace at home. So logically speaking, they might win this one. The Chelsea must find a solution for Cole Palmer, because I think he is the ultimate player for Chelsea. I know that nobody wants to be a player FC, but Liverpool won the league, circling all the attack around Mohamed Salah. There's no fault of this. Arsenal have put everything around Bukayo Saka. Man City have put everything around Haaland. I think Chelsea fans need to accept it.
Last season, off of focusing on all of our attack through Cole Palmer and giving him the ball, and he dragged
something bad. Right? People take it as negative, and I don't think it's negative.
Look,
if you have a brilliant player like this,
and you build systems around your best players, and if you've only got one, then you're quite limited, aren't you, in the way that you might have to play? But I definitely think Cole Palmer's shown enough that you don't move him out of a position where he's been most effective, and then sort of look to try and either blame him or drop him, which I think some people have suggested. Some people have suggested that it's all on him. I think there's a bit of a clash here between his confidence now being in a position where it's not been before, and I also think an issue with the system and how we play is something that he struggled to get to terms with, to be honest, where last season it was so simple for him, it probably felt so natural. Now, we've said it a number of times, but there's almost a limitation where Enzo Fernandez is now currently the player that's occupying the area of the pitch that we've seen Cole Palmer have most success. Earlier in the season, it was Gusto at times, and Maresca's not really got it right with Cole Palmer, which for me, when a player's that good, ultimately is a huge sort of black mark against you, in the sense that you've not got something right there as a manager when you can't get the best out of your best player, to be honest.
Yeah. The thing is, if you'd done it where it was like, okay, so we're no longer, Cole Palmer is maybe no longer hitting the same incredible level that he was, but we're getting more out of Jackson, we're getting more out of Neto off the left. Like, everyone else's numbers has increased because the way the squad is playing, and therefore the overall numbers have gone up, then that's fine. But like, it's not like anyone's kind of taken this opportunity to shine. It's not like not getting the best out of Cole Palmer means that you're getting the best out of other players now. And I think at that point, you're like, well, may as well go back to at least getting the best out of the best player.
You know, Rory's so right. I struggle lately to see an outstanding people. Okay, I've had this argument with Don, and there's a video about it with him and Jess going at it about Caicedo. I don't think there's a player at Chelsea that has been outstanding, especially in the last 15 games. Like the first 14 games, Chelsea looked great. 15 games, I struggle to see anyone that is. I'm not. I just want to tell you guys that
Cucurella, but I hate to tell you, but it's Cucurella. Cucurella has probably been up there. As
probably either get a shout to be like the best player, but I don't think that anyone for a team that is sitting fourth, there is no one that is outstanding. Like, you can tell from Nottingham Forest that Milinkovic is outstanding, Murillo, Chris Wood, even Hudson-Odoi. For Arsenal, there are players that have been outstanding, like Gabriel has been outstanding. Timber has been out. When I say outstanding, like someone that is, you watch that guy and I'm like, wow, this guy is stepping up. Eze, for example, for Crystal Palace has been outstanding. There are a lot of players that have been outstanding for other clubs. For Chelsea, I'm looking at it like, who?
A little bit of this is recency bias, though, because Chelsea are in fourth because of points they achieved earlier on in the season when Cole Palmer was outstanding, was doing things that were putting him in big discussions, right? What we're now seeing is Chelsea being in this position probably because of what we achieved earlier on in the season. What have we got? 4 wins, 5 wins in the last 15 games, something like that. The form table shows us around 13th, I think. So we're not doing anything outstanding. So the fact that if a player was doing something outstanding that was good enough to win games, we may be higher up the form table than that and having a more optimistic outlook on where Chelsea's season might round up and finish off. But look, I think Caicedo and Cucurella have been players that have been very, very good this season. I think Enzo has had a good season. I think that's the level he needs to be at as a minimum, though. That's what I will say. But when he costs that much money and there's that much expectation on you, and what I see him do for Argentina is extremely different from what I see him do at Chelsea. And I think Cole Palmer has had moments this season that have been outstanding, as has Nicholas Jackson to start off the season. But we've all sort of seen that come to a pretty abrupt halt. And even Maresca, you might argue, had a better spell this season with decisions he was making on and off the pitch.
No, I agree with you. Like Enzo Fernandez has improved over the past year, over the first 18 months he played. Caicedo has been the most consistent player for Chelsea. Cucurella has been very consistent. But there are players like Colwell who has fell off a cliff. He fell off a cliff, to be honest. From the talks like he's going to be the Liverpool next defender and all the stuff to absolutely being out of form completely. Fofana has been injured for a while, and I'm looking at this Chelsea team, and I remember Hussam I told you guys about this in Straight Facts. After the game, Hussam said Chelsea are 3 players away from challenging next season. Like, that is now far. Like, that is long gone.
They could be, couldn't they? Because if Chelsea were to bring in 2 centre-backs and a goalkeeper, I think that would make a huge difference to this team. Because I feel like both the centre-backs and the goalkeeper have been massive issues this season. Defensively, we definitely had problems. I don't necessarily think that goes and wins us the league, but I think that makes a huge difference to the team and its confidence and its outlook. But I do think the manager is definitely going to be an issue. So as many players as you bring in, I still think there's an issue with Maresca. I just think the second half of the season, post-December, really has just been so underwhelming and so far from what we saw the first sort of 15 games. It's just been outrageous.
Are we giving up on Maresca? Should we wait, like Arsenal fans waited on Arteta?
No, because I think we saw...
Why not?
We saw progression every season with Arteta.
Not really.
We're seeing regression in a very small space of time with Enzo.
Actually, in the first 2 seasons, maybe Rory can correct. In the first 2 seasons, we haven't seen a lot of progression. Arteta was patching things. I remember Arsenal in the first 2 seasons. It was just a patching work. No, it wasn't. It was eighth. Like
but that first 8th was he started in like
I think we were 11th
or whatever.
Yeah,
11th. So like I think we did in terms of points per game, we massively improved when he took over. That got us into 8th. I think then there was a bit of the following season we finished 8th again, but we were playing
the points tally was higher as well. No,
the points tally was higher. We were definitely playing.
The points tally because it depends on how the season goes. You guys get my point. Like Chelsea might get higher points than last season.
But with Arteta's
maybe
first
it's
full
going to be
season,
incredibly tough.
With Arteta's first full season, which was the only season where the final position in the table didn't improve, you could see everything that he was trying to do in terms of the players he was trying to phase out, the players he was trying to bring in, the way that we were changing, how we were trying to play. Like you could see, and also you could see that like that squad was so far away from being able to compete anyway. It was more about like changing the absolute fundamentals, whereas I don't feel like Chelsea are or should be in that position. Like you look at the results that Pochettino picked up in the second half of last season, you should be building on that. And I don't think he's built on. He did at the start of the season, but now he's regressed again. So yeah, look, I think Maresca. Personally, I think Maresca is good enough as a manager of Chelsea. If your ambition is to, qualify for the Champions League, maybe. If you have any ambition beyond that.
Rory, just to add to that, and I know people are going to get annoyed because they're going to be, it's so negative, blah, 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 blah. But actually, Maresca, you made a point that potentially the honeymoon period was what he was riding off the back of Poch and that sort of momentum. Actually, if we argue that ended and then Maresca's kind of been left to his own devices without that momentum, his form is nowhere near good enough to compete for Champions League, if you think about it. So
True.
I'm not actually sure he's good enough to do that, to be honest. From what I've seen, I think there are far better managers in the Premier League than Enzo Maresca that could do a way better job than him. I think he's out of his depth, and I don't want to be too harsh on him because you can't say no to that job if it comes calling. But it was just too soon. Chelsea,
but there were better managers than Arteta at that time in the Premier League as well. Dan, but I'm not comparing. I'm not comparing Arteta today. Then I want you just to get my point. I'm not comparing Arteta today. I am thinking the Arteta that didn't get top 4.
Okay, let me tell you a few things about Arteta while he was in a better position. Arteta knew the club inside out that he was coming into. He also was a player that played a lot of games in the Premier League, knew the league, knew exactly what he wanted, and he was part of this Manchester City setup that also Maresca was part of. But Arteta had probably more of a say than what Maresca had. I feel like Arteta came into that job and had an idea of what he wanted to do that were his own ideas, and they were his, and he's owned them. And we've seen that with this team. It's the complete product of Mikel Arteta's mind. It works in that way. It looks like what he wants. Enzo Maresca, I see him copying tactics that Pep had in that season when he was there. And when the going gets difficult and those tactics are questioned by certain things other managers do during a game, he has no reply, no response, because he's copying someone's homework, in my opinion.
But same people who said about Arteta and Rory. You remember, Rory, the conversation about Arteta copying Pep Guardiola?
Yeah, but at the time,
and that went for seasons. By the way, that didn't go for one season.
But that was always just lazy analysis of. We clearly weren't playing like Pep Guardiola's Man City, but people would just go, he's a mini Pep. He wants to be Pep. And that was just because he was Pep's assistant. Like, you
cannot deny that, like with Enzo Maresca, João Cancelo's role is being mimicked by his fullbacks at Chelsea to be this inverted fullback that picks up the ball in 10 positions. That's what he's trying to do, but we haven't got a player that can do that.
One big difference for me, a significant difference, was that when Arteta came in, he started picking up results against big teams that we hadn't done for years. Because even at the final few years of Wenger, we were getting battered by every big team. Every time we played them. Arteta came in and found a way of beating those big teams. We won the FA Cup off the back of beating City and Chelsea, despite them having far better teams. That's something I've not really seen from Maresca at all. I think Chelsea's record against the Big Six this season is poor. He's getting outclassed by other managers. Whereas Arteta was finding a way to beat the top managers in the league with far fewer tools. And so I think that was probably one big thing that was one thing that convinced me.
No one is giving Maresca, okay, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but no one is giving Maresca the excuses or the context of having Lavia injured, Fofana's injured. Now Nico Jackson has been injured. Madueke is injured. No one is giving him that, and he doesn't have enough. Basically, he has 4 midfielders fit to play the whole season in Enzo, Caicedo, Dewsbury Hall, and Cole Palmer, who's not a midfielder. But no one is giving it. He hasn't had his full team. Because realistically, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, when Chelsea had Lavia in the beginning of the season and Fofana fit, Chelsea was second. And Nico Jackson was fighting. Chelsea were playing good football. Madueke got injured, Jackson got injured, Fofana got injured, and Chelsea, even Malo Gusto got injured. You played Disasi at right back for like 6 consecutive games or 4 consecutive games or something.
I'm not sure if we did in the Prem. I'm not sure if we did.
Maybe I'm mistaken.
Had a couple of games
a few games maybe.
But no one is giving him that excuse, and everyone is like,
I think people gave that excuse. If you went from you were fighting, possibly for a title to now you're not. You're still picking up wins, but you're not. You're not picking up wins every game like Liverpool were. I think people would be like, that's understandable. I think it's the fact that quite clearly managers have figured him out. You can. It's so clear if you watch back games from the start of the season to games now against the exact same opposition. Teams have completely changed the way that they play against Chelsea, and it's been happening now for
Brighton is the biggest example.
Brighton is the best example.
Yeah. The way they played against them at first, yeah, it's
very, very clear that teams have and managers have figured Maresca out, and he hasn't figured out the response to that. So he had a way of playing, it worked well, he got figured out. Now the onus is back on him to change, and he hasn't done. And so
this is also a repeat pattern. We all saw this last season at Leicester happen. The exact amount of huge amount of points was dropped. and he
Fell off at the end.
found a way. So we're in this moment of time now where, off the back of this international break, he's got what, I can't remember the exact amount of games, maybe 12 games, something like, or 15 points to get. He's got 15 points to get. He's got a really, really big job on his hands, and he's got to find a way to get those points. If not, he will not do a better job than Pochettino. That's mathematically a fact that he'll be below Poch's points tally. Look, he's got a lot of work to do. He's had some tough players. Some players go through tough injuries for sure, definitely. But he also didn't have them all happen at the same time. He also had those players available, and there were issues with results. Nicholas Jackson didn't score for 8 games before his injury. Cole Palmer obviously got injured. That was also available. Gusto had injuries. Lavia as well. I mean, he hasn't played that many games, and we're talking about having a midfield of still 250 million without him in the team, pretty much. So he's definitely had players available. I don't think he's done a good enough job, and I think Rory has hit the nail on the head that second time round, once the data's there and there's enough data to see patterns appearing, his football's become very predictable, and these managers have set their teams up to deal with that. And we're like we said, Brighton are a great example of that. They knocked Chelsea out of the FA Cup and put them into. I mean, I don't even know what that performance.
Can I
was
give
on
you
there.
just for the sake? Can I give you some stats? And I want you guys to tell me what do you think when I tell you the stats. Position-based team, Chelsea are second behind Man City with only 2% below them. Right? Big chances, Chelsea are second behind Liverpool. Shots on target, Chelsea are third. Expected goals, XG, Chelsea are second. Big chances missed, Chelsea are second. Accurate passes per match, Chelsea are second. Touches in the opposition box, I think Chelsea are late because Chelsea are fourth, right? If you look at all of these, you think that Chelsea create enough to be at least better than this. I'm just playing devil's advocate here and just reading the stats. In terms of XG conceded, Chelsea are 12th, which is, they are similar to Manchester City. If I'm someone from outside and I'm giving you these stats, what would your interpretation be?
That they've got players that probably aren't doing their job in some areas, potentially. I think there's a lack of clinical ability in front of goal. And I would probably say they're holding on to the ball for too long and probably making it a priority, looking for perfection rather than actually looking for
being direct.
Huh?
Being direct, you mean?
Yeah,
like they aren't being direct. They are being very
passive. Yeah, they are. They're probably not taking, at moments, they're not taking risks that they need to. But yeah, look, I think there's a focus on play style there rather than results. I think that's probably what those stats show you.
I was going to say, is that by design or is that by the players just not being able to play together, whatever it is? Because if they were playing well at the start of the season with certain players in there, and if they haven't changed and everything's remained the same, but the opposition have figured out Chelsea, well, surely there's got to be something that Maresca's got to do in order to change that around. If you're
but if the opposition have figured out Chelsea, don't you think that means that they wouldn't create enough chances? Logically speaking.
The only thing is we don't know those chances.
Haven't scored.
Yeah. Where are they coming from as well? Because there were games earlier on in the season where Chelsea were legitimately creating like probably 20 opportunities during the game. Well, I don't see that happening nearly as much now.
I don't know that stats that the distribution of the stats then, to be honest. I don't know the distribution, to be honest.
So this is the thing. This is the thing. Early in the season, Chelsea were creating a lot of big chances because they were playing transitional football. Generally speaking, you create big chances from those moments, and they could get away with the fact that they'd miss quite a few of them because they'd have so many that they'd score quite a few of them. And that is where teams started changing the way they played. Going, actually, if we can limit the number of big chances that they create against us, they will miss plenty because they don't have the most prolific goal scorers. So we'll sit back, and that's where that possession stats comes from. Because now Chelsea are having 60, 70% possession in a game, but it's not like the teams that they're playing against are concerned about that. You know, they dominate. They have more possession than Arsenal at the Emirates, but we were more than happy for them to have that possession. Same with Brighton. And so you've got teams that are going, we'll sit back, we'll let them have the ball. They can create maybe one or two big chances. We also know, where were they for chances conceded? Mid-table. So we know we're going to get our own chances.
Them and Man City are the mid-table.
Yeah. Basically. So we know we're going to get our own chances against them. The difference is they don't have an Erling Haaland. So where Man City have had a very poor season by their own standards. I think that's pretty much explained in the second half of the season. Teams have gone, no problem, have the ball. You won't do us on a transition, nowhere near as much. You won't create as many big chances. You'll concede plenty still. I think that, it pretty much explains what we've seen.
It does, because Maresca's completely anti this transitional football that I think is actually one of Chelsea's strengths. We've seen it a number of times during games where he'll almost find a sense of frustration at Chelsea trying to attack quickly, and he'd rather the situation be calmed down. Anyone who's been to the Bridge this season would have seen him doing this. It's almost a repeat every single game, that he wants it calmer and slower, and he wants this sort of passive approach, but you might find that one opportunity that can potentially win you a game. But he's also not accounted for the fact he keeps picking someone like Robert Sanchez. And if we go and look at the stats that are there that aren't being selected for this discussion, he's also got a keeper that has led to the most errors for goals conceded this season as well. I think it's 5 or 6 goals earlier on in the season as well. Chelsea are massively outperforming their XG, almost luckily, against defensive opportunities and moments. We should have been conceded way more than we actually were. And I think those have sort of leveled themselves out now and don't come into those discussions, because what we're trying to do with some of those stats is almost show that Maresca actually isn't the issue. But there are issues that, and you can go and find the stats out there that show that he's also been a bit of a problem as well at the same time.
And even things like, Mo, you were trying to, I know you're playing devil's advocate, you may not actually sort of believe it, but, talk about the midfielders that he's had lacking. But he's had Enzo and Caicedo for the majority of the season. He brought Kieran Dewsbury-Hall with him for 30-odd million quid and has not really used him by his own choice. Chukwuemeka, is he still at the club?
No, he's at Dortmund.
No,
he's also inverted his fullbacks, Rory, pretty much every game to put extra bodies in there as well. So the only real injury I think that's been significant in terms of costing Chelsea because there was no backup was Nicholas Jackson. In terms of that, you're not really having another proper 9. I mean, what's his name, Mark Gee. Yeah, Mark Gee, and obviously Nkunku just never fancied that. I would also add Wesley Fofana. I think Wesley Fofana for is actually a player that I do feel sympathy for. I think the only thing I would say is, if his system is so heavily based around a player that's got such a poor appearance record for Chelsea, it's almost a questionable decision to do that and base your system around a player that has shown no durability.
It's a flawed system. Is what it is.
Potentially, Tom. Yeah.
I was going to respond to Rory about this because I haven't said my opinion, Rory.
It's the same, isn't it? As if Tuchel decided to base his England team around Reece James being one of the wing backs, right? And then Reece can't maintain fitness. It's almost like, well, what are we doing here? We should have focused on playing a different player in that position and changing up the system. I think that's what we're seeing here, is that when Fofana's fit, it allows Chelsea to play in a manner that helps Maresca's system to thrive. But when he isn't, we've got an issue there. We don't have a player with the type of recovery pace that he has. But look, Wesley Fofana is a player that's proven that he can be fantastic on his day, but isn't reliable in terms of availability.
Can I, before Tom comes in, welcome, Tom. Why you're upset? Can I ask why you're upset? Seriously? Okay. You always come with a smile, but you came like so upset for some whatever reason. Liverpool are going to be okay. You're going to win your 20th. You're going to be all right.
I'm fine.
All right.
I'm fine.
No one's leaving.
I'm not in these discussions. My team aren't scoring enough goals. I'm all right,
Yeah. So, Rory, to answer you, I actually think Chelsea's problem lies in one area of the pitch, and it's not the defensive. It's the midfield that is imbalanced, and I've said that plenty of times. Put Cole Palmer on the right side. Find the DM to play next to Caicedo. Chelsea are so suspect in transition. It is unreal when you watch them. Against any team in the Premier League, couple of passes, and I have plenty of photos. When I was watching games, I take photos with my phone. 4 players or 5 players from Chelsea are still ahead of the ball, and the other team already have 6 players trying to run at their defense. And because Caicedo's left on an island by himself, because Enzo Fernandez is not the most mobile guy. There is someone on Twitter, actually, that made a compilation of how many times Enzo Fernandez, as good as he is for Chelsea going forward, gets bypassed. Very simple. Very simple in the midfield. And Caicedo's trying to chase shadows because now he has 2 midfielders trying to go at him. Also, he's trying to cover the wingers that don't track back because you need to double or if the fullback of the opposition is doing an overlap, you need a defensive midfielder to go cover. That is what Chelsea's problem. And Cole Palmer is basically a player that are 100% offensive, 0% defensive player. And you cannot have a midfield with one only that defends. That never worked in the history of the sport, by the way. There is no team that won trophies with one player that only defends. Even Man City, Bernardo Silva used to run like a maniac with Rodri in that midfield defensively. We remember how Bernardo used to tackle, be that annoying guy in the midfield. Chelsea, basically, if you do a couple of passes in transition and you bypass their offensive players, you're in for a 4-on-4 or a 5-on-5.
Well, that's on Maresca, right?
It is definitely.
And that is the problem.
That's
why
his rest defense.
So the last point I'm going to tell you, that's why the position stats look great. The chance creation look great. Maresca, and I had a suspicion of this in the beginning of the season. I said this guy, on record, knows how to set up his team offensively very well on the ball. Off the ball, he just doesn't know, which is very similar to one manager who won multiple trophies in his career. You guys know who? Pep Guardiola doesn't know how to set up a team defensively. And that is a problem because now when he doesn't, he didn't at Barcelona. And by the way, the conversion rate in his Barcelona teams, normally when teams go and attack, they score one of every two chances. But Pep Guardiola is a genius of stopping the opposition, bypassing the press. He knows where to set up his players. Maresca doesn't know that. That's why Ipswich tore them apart. Fulham, same. And plenty other teams. Brighton, same.
I just think the problem is personnel-wise with Chelsea. When I'll put it in basketball terms. Chelsea like to do a 5-out attack. They don't really have people crash in the box. The striker gets in the box, and then no one else really gets in the box. So what you end up having is basically a group of players all around the edge of the box, all passing the ball around each other because they can't get the shot off. The only guy that's ever in the box is the striker. But considering both strikers are now injured, you're playing someone who doesn't want to be in the box up front. So there's points in games where Chelsea have no one in the box, but about 6 players on the edge of the box because they're trying to pick the passes all the way through. That's where the problems arise. Their wingers can't beat their fullbacks one-on-one from wide areas, which therefore means that the pass gets sent inside, which therefore goes to a player who doesn't want it there because they can't shoot from outside the box. So they're just going to pass it on one more. The reason their possession stats are so high is, I don't have the numbers on hand, there is probably a case where Chelsea have 60 to 90 seconds of possession in the opposition half's final third, where it's just pass, little dribble, can't get there, pass, over to the other side, can't get through there, pass. If they had more people committing into the box, then you might get a cross in. And the point is, if you put in a cross in, you get a chance to reset. Chelsea are losing the ball in positions where they can't reset because they are frustrated and commit more players forward into their weird 5-out attack. They need to take more risks in the box. They need to make Palmer sit in the box. They need to make one of the wingers go to the back post whenever it's on the other side and sacrifice that constant.
Kukurea does that, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a few things, Tom.
And that is why, if we look at recently, Cucurella has been one of the players more involved in the goals.
See that, Tom? All what you said, Tom, is great. One solution. So they don't have a problem going forward. All they need is a number 9, and everything is solved.
Yeah.
Right?
They need number 9.
They have massive problems in defense and midfield.
But I don't think those. I think these problems are being exacerbated by the lack of a striker. I think if you put a striker in there, players are more cautious. So if you put a striker in the box, Madueke, I'm just going to use names, Madueke and Sancho are more likely to put the ball in the box because there's someone to aim for. Therefore, you don't need to commit the guys from line 2, i.e. Caicedo and Lavia, or occasionally Enzo.
No, they never had a problem when Lavia and Caicedo played. They never had a problem.
because they didn't commit and there was a striker there. So the cross would go into the box. The 2 DMs ensure there's a better rest defense. If the ball is cleared, They are ready to pick up pieces. The problem they have now is they're not putting the ball into the box, but they're getting frustrated. So more players are joining the attack. They're losing the ball in their little tippy-tappy outside the box stuff. And then they're getting into transition situations where it's just the attackers running against the defenders, or Caicedo if he's not to join the attack yet. The problem is they need someone to be a focal point in the box who they can put attacks to. Right now, they have no one to finish attacks. They don't know who they want on the end of their attacks. They need someone in the box to be on the end of their attacks, whether it's a low cross, a floated cross, a nice interplay.
So you think a striker solves all Chelsea problems?
Not all of them, but I don't think it. I think it solves a lot of the ones that we're saying they have and need signings to fix. They need a midfielder, but I don't think the midfielder means they score goals. I think
but I
all
see
the
logic in it, to be honest.
I think all they need is a striker, and a lot of their structure problems are solved.
I see the argument. I see the argument, though. It's a new argument I haven't heard before, to be honest. But I still think that Enzo and Palmer cannot play together in that midfield with one DM. That is my take on it. I think it needs to be a Caicedo, Lavia, Enzo Fernandez, or an attacking midfielder, not Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer needs to play on the side, to be honest.
I think the biggest issue here is that we're talking about massive squad building.
Why does because he's done it a couple of times this season, why does a Lavia Enzo midfield work?
Because Caicedo inverted in the midfield and Caicedo is smarter than Malagusto. And he still, by the way, you remember the time that Caicedo played as right back. At the end, he cost his team 2 goals, a penalty, if I'm not mistaken, Dan, and something else.
Arguably one of Chelsea's best performances this season was against Aston Villa when he did that role, and we looked really good. But against Spurs, obviously, we still won the game, but there was obviously huge amounts of space for Son to get in behind when he was sort of in that moment of transitioning from inversion.
I think football shouldn't be that complicated. You should have
no, it shouldn't. I think that's something that Maresca's done over and over.
Arsenal play the simplest football in the world. A DM, 2 8s, wingers. All they need is a striker. They do.
Miles
midfield that inverts, to be
Calafiori.
Yeah. But you watch.
If you're after the most simple team, it does, because our fullbacks don't invert anymore.
You play
very simple Robertson and Trent do line runs.
Liverpool.
I think Newcastle are incredibly simple. I think Ahal's 4-3-3 is incredibly simple as well.
Yeah.
I think there is a sense of managers now trying to overcomplicate matters. I definitely agree.
If anything, Sean Dyche was the most. He was the real pioneer.
Sean Dyche,
centre backs at full back, solid back 4.
Forest
Wingers just ran down the line.
Forest are pretty simple.
No, you see, because there's like levels of wokeness. Wingers cutting inside, that's too woke. What happens to the wingers that just run down line and we're crossing?
Yeah. Nico Williams is inverted on the left hand side as a
we've got Nico Williams doing right back at left back so we can invert and go onto his strong.
He subs on Morato quite often to switch to a 3 during the game as well for us. But now I hear what Rory's saying. For that system, it's pretty simple that they know what they're looking for, which is what I think Tom's trying to get to. Is they've identified the sense that they look for when Gibbs White is on the ball, he knows what he's looking for in front of him. He's got his runners in Elanga, Hudson-Odoi. He's got his big man up front if he needs the ball to be held up for other players to join.
But Chelsea can play that then.
Chelsea can and have done that.
But the principles are still there. If you took Chris Wood out of that team and put in, I don't know, who's the back winger? Jota Silva. We'll say Jota Silva because I'm just using the Chelsea example. If you take out Chris Wood and put in Jota Silva up top, teams would then go, we can just double up on the wingers because Jota Silva ain't doing shit. That's the problem Chelsea have right now. They are, because they don't have a striker to cause the defence problems, teams are quite happy to just let them camp on the edge of the box because they know there's going to be no penetration, there's going to be no impetus to break through that defensive line. It's just going to be tippy-tappy waiting for the perfect opportunity that's never going to arise because they don't have the guy to create that opportunity in the box.
That stands true now whilst Jackson's been injured, but there's been issues when Jackson's been fit and available when we have had a striker. He didn't score for the previous games.
Yes, but I think that's more an individual thing. Right. I think Jackson goes through those periods. He's going to be a striker that goes through that. If you, again, Didier Drogba is not, there's no striker like Drogba on the market now. But if you put Drogba in the positions Jackson was in those games, I think the narrative is different because Drogba scores more of them chances. And some of those ones where you're going, oh, Chelsea is struggling. It's going, no, they're doing it right, and the striker's putting it in the back of the net. I think there's a lot to be made about, the system's broken, this, that, and the other. Sometimes it's just the players are making the players are putting a bad light on the system by not scoring the goals. If the players score the goals, the system's world class. At the end of the day, if Chelsea had a striker
I'm
the
not
best
sure that's
conversion rate,
entirely true with Chelsea. I just don't think it is. I think there's a mixture of both being true. I think Maresca has openly caused Chelsea issues this season through selections, through decisions during a game, through lack of making decisions, lack of the ability to change up a game tactically when other managers are doing so against him. I think they're things that no matter who he's selected, he's struggling to cope with.
Yeah, Chelsea is still mid-table for goals conceded, chances conceded. So, to an extent, the only team that can even kind of get away with that has been City because they're such a threat in attack. Chelsea aren't going to sign a Haaland. So I feel like, you can't be mid-table for conceding goals.
Yeah, Chelsea's mentality as well is another thing. It doesn't come into stats here, but our form under Maresca, like Rory pointed and alluded to earlier, it's not been good enough against the big teams. Our only away win in recent years has obviously been only really against Spurs. Other than that, it's been probably about 4 years since we've had a decent away win against the Big Six side, and then at home we've also not been good enough. So there are issues with Maresca as a coach and his ability to get the best out of this group of players, because I don't think he's doing that at the moment. I think the players are better than what our current form suggests, but then I also think Tom is right in the sense that some players are probably a hindrance to the system, and they're not helping Maresca.
Maresca wants to play a system that certain players in his team don't have the mindset to play.
Yeah, so that is purely on him as a coach to make that decision to come in and say, I'm going to live and die by my system and my beliefs, and if I can't get results out of that, I'll accept being removed from my post. And that's exactly what he's doing.
I also think it's an element of I think first half of the season, he was sacrificing parts of his philosophy to keep parts of Pochettino's to keep the players happy. That's why Chelsea were a lot more transitional.
And I almost think he found this unwanted blend of something that he didn't want. It wasn't exactly what he wanted, but it actually for Chelsea probably worked almost perfectly.
Chelsea's team is built to play on the counter. It's got quick wingers, a quick striker,
it's got a lot of
10 that wants to play incisive balls.
It's
very individualistic. It's not built for a system which is very positional oriented and rotation heavy and this, that, and the other. Certain players, I think Maresca was doing the counter attack stuff at the start of the season. It got very good, and then it had the blip. It had the blip in December time, where teams were, I think it was ultimately just a case of sometimes your luck runs out a little bit, and teams were scoring the chances. He
also made massive statements that I think mentality wise.
Yeah, his whole.
There's a lot.
There's title race, top four.
Yeah,
does anybody?
But then he waited. The moment he got that done, he got to change his possession system. I think he's now just constantly playing it to show the board, to show the fans, these lot aren't going to work the way I want to play. The likes of
more players.
Yeah, he's saying that certain players don't have the mentality to play his way. I don't think that what's his name? The fucking Pedro Neto is the guy that he wants in his team on the wing. I think he wants one of these slower wingers. I think he wants a slightly more confident Jadon Sancho on both wings. Someone who is very possession oriented, will occasionally beat his fullback, but is there to maintain width in a system, occasionally cut inside and play make, not do anything too risky, not do anything too fancy, just get it into the middle. I think that's what he wants, not these wingers who are so quick, probably their feet are quicker than their mind, so they just run. They try and beat men down the line, and then they're constantly trying to cut inside and shoot and this, that, and the other. That's not his shape. That's not what he wants. I think he wants to go to that.
But you could also argue, though, Tom, the most success he's had out of his wide players have been in those moments where they have been quick and they have added a sense of electric.
So it's the clash of ideologies. Chelsea's squad is built for the quick winger. Maresca wants a slow winger.
Well, I think the issue here is that Maresca's arguably
one of them adapt.
got a lot of demands,
walk
and he's
the
not
other
done
way.
enough to. Maresca's got a lot of demands around how he wants his team to be built and what he wants from that team, but he's probably not got enough credit in the bank in football to make those demands. To be honest with you,
to warrant something like that.
I think that's massive. I think if he'd come in off the back of winning a Premier League, or he'd done really well on the continent somewhere, and it was a really credited appointment getting him in, I think maybe he could have those demands. But to be honest with you, I don't think he can sit there and make those demands when realistically his form has just not been good enough. It's fallen off the face of a cliff, and there are huge issues with what he said off the pitch as well. I think he's lost the fans at Stamford Bridge, that's for sure. And I think once you do that, it's incredibly rare a manager comes back from it. I think, and I'm being serious here, I think Pochettino is one of the only managers I can think of that managed to turn some of the fan base around, but it still wasn't enough, because he started off so poorly that by the end of it, actually, because his system progressed and people saw him eventually make adjustments that got him results, they kind of sort of said, like, oh, he's finally got there. But Pochettino was never the right appointment, and he did need to go. But I feel like we have this discussion every week about Chelsea. We just right now, Chelsea's priorities, I don't believe are competitive enough.
We'll say the same for Arsenal too in terms of striker problems, but the defense and the midfield basically are strong. By the way, everyone that says Kingsley that said that switch Arsenal defense and the goalkeeper, basically that's half the team. That changes the fortune of any team, basically. Swap the midfield, swap the defense and the goalkeeper. That's 5 players out of 11. That's half the team. It definitely changes the fortune of, and also a manager is how the manager is as good as how he utilizes the weapons, and Arteta has utilized the defense very well. That is why Arsenal is one of the strongest defense in the league and one of the strongest in the world actually at the current moment. So if you switch the defense and the midfield, that's basically more than half your team, basically, if you switch that. But anyway, we'll see. Are you expecting wins against Spurs? The last thing, Dan, and Spurs and Brentford?
Yeah, I think Spurs. I just think Chelsea win that fixture. I mean, that's the writing on the wall, by the way, if we don't win that fixture. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much a guaranteed every season. No, it is though, isn't it?
Spurs lost 15 games, so you better be winning that game.
Yeah. If Maresca loses that,
whoever loses that game, the fan base is going to be an absolute meltdown.
But
Thursday night, no matter what, is going to be glorious.
Spurs don't expect to win that game, do they? As a fan base, like, I just don't believe that they're expecting to win that game.
Deji does.
No.
Some people do.
Yeah,
but the meltdown will
league.
still be great. Yeah.
They don't think that the manager is good enough, and I'm not sure if Spurs will ever go back to the top. There are rumors that they want Inzaghi from Inter, and I'm like, if Inzaghi goes,
you know what? I want Zendaya as well, but it's no your lane, lad.
What are you
go
saying,
take
Mo?
the fucking Mark Robbins from the Championship and move.
bro, if Inzaghi goes to Spurs, I'm gonna lose all the respect to him. To be honest with all due respect to every Spurs fan, if Inzaghi leaves Inter for a bit of a pay rise to go coach Spurs, with all due respect, I'm done here. Like,
surely he's gonna speak to Conte. Surely he's gonna speak to Conte and say, like, bro, what do you reckon? Yeah, no, he's gonna be like,
I think
they'll just say, get your bag, mate. Go secure it.
Go from.
they don't even pay that much.
Really?
Spurs are not
Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan into fucking Bentancur, Basuma. Fucking hell.
I'm gonna tell you, if Spurs give us like £500 million and get the Bastonis and the Barellas, Lautaro and Inzaghi, £500 million, Inter can build a whole team that will dominate Serie A for the next 10 years. To be honest, I'm okay with that. Listen. We were going to speak Liverpool, but there is not a lot of time. There's also only the Luis Diaz. We'll speak about Liverpool maybe if they lose to Everton. I don't think it matters. Liverpool season is over. They're going to win the league. And that's about it. It's all now about renewing Mohamed Salah and Van Dijk. It's all about that now. But there's nothing new about this. It's only the Luis Diaz news. Trent
what about Salah on Instagram? Surely there's a few
a whole nothing
that.
burger, bro. There's a whole nothing burger in that, bro.
Oh,
2-second video with no audio.
This is what Salah does. I remember I remember after we drew with United, his photo of the game was him, Trent, and Van Dijk stood over a free kick. He just knows how to play the media, and he knew the reaction it'd get. So, it is what it is.
There's no over-analysis. We spoke about it in the beginning before you jumped on, Dan.
Oh, okay.
And there is nothing to look into here. Like, big up everyone that is here. Dan, a channel is in the description. Rory Talks Football on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. Go and support Rory. There's a lot of TikToks. The football is back, so you'll see a lot of Rory on TikTok as well. So go and support Rory. Tom Little channel in the description as well. And Nick, the football club, is in the description as well. So go and support them. Staffy and Jamie Story are in the description as well. Don't go anywhere. Hold that 60% more. You basically came from behind, so my prediction was correct. I said that Bournemouth are favorites to win the game. You had to make subs to win the game. So I'm not surprised that you won the game, but it doesn't mean I'm wrong. If my prediction were right, you were wrong, you wouldn't have come from behind, German Chicken Wing. So because I gave Bournemouth 60% chance of winning and City 40%, the people said I'm crazy. So, but I still think it held a lot of water. But listen, thank you, German Chicken Wing, for the support. We'll see you guys soon. There's no one to redirect, to be honest. I'll look. We're out of here, people. We'll see you tomorrow on the Shameless show with Wolfie and the rest of them. We're out of here.
Oi.